Alright, so just a few disclaimers before we start off the first chapter of the Dismemberment Song, which is the first book in my Stab at Love series. This series is a non-profit fanwork series. All of the rights to all the characters from Hazbin Hotel belong to the crew behind Hazbin Hotel, and all of the rights to the art belong to their original artist. No copyright infringement intended. Also, this story, while it does have elements of romance, is mainly a horror/thriller series. So there will be graphic depictions of violence and betrayal. Please look at the description for the trigger warnings and keep these in mind if you do continue to listen to the series and to this chapter. Now, with all that said and done, I sincerely hope you enjoy this series, and without further ado, here is the first chapter. The Dismemberment Song, Chapter 1. The room was pitch black, and all that you could hear was the faint hum of an air conditioning unit. You could feel the cold metal of the table you were strapped down to. The straps themselves had small, sharp metal barbs in them that would cut into your flesh every time you tried to move. And you tried to move. When you had first woken up, you had struggled against your restraints right away, quickly learning by the stinging pain in your body that this would get you nowhere. You had a breathable gag in your mouth and a blindfold over your eyes. Yet, you knew that there was no light, because no light had seeped through the cloth blindfold. The room smelt awful. It smelled like something had been forgotten in the back of someone's fridge for a very long time. Something that had rotten and had been left to fester. You then heard the sound of a doorknob turning, and a door creaking from somewhere near you. I don't want to set the world on fire. I just want to start a flame in your heart, sang a sugary sweet voice. It was charming and pleasant to listen to. It was the voice of a man, that much you could tell. It sounded familiar, but you couldn't place it. The singing stopped, and you could hear footsteps coming towards you. You stiffened your whole body as you felt a hand gently brushing some of your hair from your forehead.
Good morning, my dear, and how did you rest? That chloroform stuff really does do the trick,
the man asked you. You tried to answer, however the gag in your mouth prevented you from saying anything. The man must have noticed this, as he sighed and removed the gag and the blindfold. He walked away and turned on a small desk lamp that lit up the room. The man was quite handsome, you had to admit. He had short brown hair and matching hazel brown eyes. He had black pants on and pure black shoes. He had a crimson vest on over his white shirt and a black bow tie as well. He looked very proper and professional. He also had on large circular glasses that somehow complemented his features. He had a charming smile as well, and normally that would have comforted you. However, his eyes betrayed his darker intentions. Like a predator looking at his trapped prey, his eyes were filled with hunger. He had on a pair of dark black leather gloves, and he licked his lips as he looked at you.
Darling, it's rude not to answer someone when they ask you a question,
he whispered into the shell of your ear. You shivered at this. His breath felt hot against your cold skin.
I slept fine,
you stuttered out. The man smiled more at you. You had doubted that was possible, but that smile seemed to keep growing.
Wonderful! I am so glad to hear that. Oh, but I should introduce myself. Forgive me for being so rude. My name is Alastor. Pleasure to meet you,
he introduced. Your eyes widened as you heard his name. That was why you knew him. Alastor, the radio host. He was the voice of your favorite radio show.
It cannot be him. It cannot be that Alastor,
you thought to yourself. Alastor chuckled at your reaction.
Oh, my dear, I see you know me from my radio show. Lovely. I always love meeting my fans, and what better way to do it than to share a meal with them,
he exclaimed happily. You looked around. This did not look like the place where one would go to have any sort of meal. Chains lined the walls, and you could see bodies attached to some of them. Skin torn from some, while others were missing organs. Eyes were missing from a few, and rats were snacking on the flesh of the bodies that lied on the floor. Blood stained every inch of the room. You began to feel sick as you realized that that was where the smell was coming from earlier.
Oh, God.
You whispered in terror. Alastor looked around the room, frowning slightly.
I know. I really should have cleaned this place up a little better. I do apologize for the state of it. Not that you'll mind in a little while, but still, it's quite ungentlemanly for me to keep such a lovely person here without cleaning it up first.
He said to you.
Please, don't do that to me.
You cried out. He placed a hand gently on your lips.
Hush, my darling. I'm not going to do that to you,
he told you. You felt yourself relax, but you had celebrated too soon.
Those were mistakes. I was rather rushed with them. No, you're going to be my work of art.
He explained to you. Your breath caught as you realized the situation you were now in. Memories flooded back. Friends had told you about a supposed serial killer that had been tormenting New Orleans. You had chalked it up to some rumors, scary stories, nothing more than people trying to do anything to make tourists flock to New Orleans. It was 1923, and with the market booming, travel was very common. You had told your friends that you were not afraid of some urban legend and had made your way to explore new places. That had been a mistake, apparently. You wanted to scream, but your breath was still caught. Your eyes were wide and you were shaking quite a bit. Flight or fight was trying to kick in, but you chose the other option. Freeze. You just stared up at the man who was holding you captive. After a little while of the room being filled with silence, you spoke.
What are you going to do to me?
You asked Alastor. Alastor smirked down at you, lifting your chin up so you were forced to face him.
My dear, I'm going to eat you,
he told you plainly. You let a few tears fall from your eyes as you struggled once more, ignoring the pain in your arms and legs. Alastor sighed, slapping you hard across the face.
Please let me go. I won't tell anyone about this.
You begged him. You didn't want to die. Not like that. You imagined all the horrid things he was going to do to you and began to scream. Alastor placed a hand over your mouth, silencing you.
Darling, don't scream. That sound is rather bothersome. Such an exquisite creature like yourself shouldn't be making such sounds.
Alastor hushed. You looked up at him with wide eyes, saliva drenching his hand. He moved his hand away after a little while, letting you breathe a little bit better. He walked away from the table and made his way over to one of the counters. It strained your neck when you tried to see what he was doing, and you immediately wished you hadn't seen it. He was standing over at a table which contained various torture devices. A strange device with large wires laid beside two very sharp-looking knives. Needles of various sizes lined the table, and they were accompanied by saws, chains, hooks, blades, and many other sharp-looking objects. A few lighters were on the table as well, and you noticed a large roll of what looked to be wax paper attached to a strange device. Alastor picked up one of the needles, making his way over to you. You squirmed around, but his hand around your neck stopped you.
If you keep moving like that, you'll injure the flesh more, and I cannot have that,
he whispered to you.
See, I need your flesh, nice and untouched. It adds a certain flavor to it,
he added.
Flavor?
You asked, confused. Alastor looked at you with a surprised expression.
Why, yes, I'm a cannibal, my dear,
he exclaimed, as though it were a perfectly normal thing to say aloud. His intentions for you became crystal clear, and you felt tears stinging your eyes. When Alastor smiled at you, this time, you could see his teeth clearly. They were razor sharp. It was clear he had done that himself, as no human teeth had ever looked like that.
You eat humans?
You stuttered out.
Why, yes, my darling. I find that human flesh and human organs just have a flavor that normal meat lacks. The taste of pure terror you get from someone whose death has been prolonged over days is savory like nothing else. The kidneys of a newly killed human are just a little salty, but if you season them right, they taste just lovely with a little bit of wine on the side. You have to be careful when cooking livers, though. Livers are tricky business. Not as bad as the human heart, though. Oh dear. If you cook those wrong, you're getting quite the awful smell all over the house. And then there's the blood inside the heart. If you don't drain it and you throw it too hard onto the pan, why, it explodes, and then you're covered with the red liquid and your lunch is ruined. I must admit my personal guilty pleasure has always been the flesh itself. A bit of thyme, parsley, and oregano added onto a thin, crispy slab of skin from the leg or from the stomach. There's nothing more delicious. The smell, oh, it fills the air, and you feel as though you're dancing among the most wonderful smells in the entire world. The flavors mix in your mouth like a symphony of taste that no one could ever replicate. The crunch as you bite into your meal, remembering the screams and pleas as you devour what is left of them. Oh, it is an experience like none other. He rambled.
Please, please, please don't hurt me.
You sobbed softly. He chuckled at this, wiping away the tears that were now streaming down your face.
You underestimate the amount of times I've heard that line. If you didn't sound so adorable when you said it, I would make this last weeks. And believe me, love, I can do that.
He told you. He moved around to where your hand was and stabbed the needle under your nail. The pain was nearly unbearable. You screamed and screamed for him to stop, but the needle kept going, deeper and deeper under the nail. He then tilted the needle on an angle, popping the nail off and causing blood to gush out of the fresh wound. He then forcefully bent your finger, breaking it with ease. He tilted the broken finger towards a bucket on the floor, letting the blood seep down into the bucket. You watched in horror as the bucket slowly filled with your blood. Alastor allowed the blood to drain for a little while before grabbing a lighter. He flicked it on and held it next to your hand. You screamed in terror and pain as the lighter was moved closer to your flesh and then to your flesh. The smell of your own burning flesh filled the room. It reminded you of a barbecue, and that was horrifying. It stopped the bleeding, though. Alastor then grabbed a small scalpel from the table and made his way back over to you.
Please stop. No more.
You managed to say. Alastor looked at you with a saddened expression.
Already? But, my dear, we've barely begun our fun.
He told you.
This is not fun.
You shot back. Alastor pouted at this.
Come now, no need to be rude.
He replied. He leaned close to you, slipping his hand gently around your waist.
Though, that sass of yours is quite thrilling.
He whispered. You bit your lip. Did he just... Huh? He laughed at your shock and confused expression, and then used the scalpel to cut into your stomach. He was careful not to injure you too badly and miss any vital organs. He did, however, remove your gallbladder. He smiled, biting into it. Blood splattered all over you, and the overwhelming stench of the gallbladder filled the room.
It's all right. Not as good as some of the other ones I've tried, but this one's all right.
He commented. You felt nauseous, and that was made worse by the fact that he held the organ in front of your face.
Try some, darling.
He purred.
No.
You shouted.
There was no way you were eating your own organs.
Alastor sighed, placing the gallbladder down on your chest and moving over to the torture table. He grabbed the device with the wires and made his way to you.
You have no idea the trouble I went through to get this. I had to go to hell and back to get this. Damn thing almost cost me my soul,
muttered Alastor. He was insane, you decided in that moment.
Hell? Souls? You will not know this,
he continued,
but this is a battery, and these are jumper cables. It is, I suppose, ahead of your time, though.
He added. The cables made a hissing sound as they were rubbed together by Alastor, and you saw sparks coming off of them. Then he attached them to your shoulders, and you felt shock running through your body. Your whole body felt as though it were on fire. You were twitching and shaking when he removed the cables. Tears streamed down your face. It was like no pain you had ever experienced in your life, and you were terrified of this device.
Now, darling, you are going to try this, and if you don't, I will shock you again.
He threatened. You swallowed hard, parting your lips a little. He shoved the gallbladder into your mouth and you gagged a little bit. It tasted like meat. It was bitter, but it was not unlike anything you had before.
It's like having raw meat. That's all.
You tried to tell yourself. You chewed on the gallbladder, swallowing it in small chunks to avoid choking. When you were done, you looked up to see Alastor smirking at you.
How was it?
He asked you. Your chest convulsed a little and you let out a small sob.
Why? Why are you doing this to me?
You cried.
Because you were so easy to capture. You are from out of town, and I doubt anyone will come looking for you in quite some time. After all, you're enjoying yourself on vacation, are you not? Why would they look for you?
He replied. He pulled out a knife from behind him and gently cut the top layer of flesh from near your ankle. He made sure it was peeling up a little bit, and then grabbed 2 hooks, attaching them to the flesh. He then put a layer of wax paper over the hooks, weaving it like a spider. He walked over to where the wax paper was attached to and turned on a machine. You screamed in pain as the machine began to curl the paper backwards, skinning you alive. You felt parts of your flesh being pulled off as the machine forced the paper and hooks backwards. You saw the flesh curling onto the wax paper, wrapping around and around in circles. Flesh, wax paper, that's how the cycle went. Your whole leg was skinned now, and it was starting to move up to your hip. The pain was burning hot, and you longed for some release from it. You saw Alastor watching in amazement at this invention of his. He hooked up your other leg, repeating the process while the machine continued on the right side of your body. Soon enough, both sides of your body were being skinned. It was only the top layer, though, so you wouldn't die right away. No. He meant for this to drag on.
Flesh roll-ups, what a great invention!
Alastor exclaimed over your screams.
This'll be ooh, this'll be ah, this'll be absolutely wee, this'll be nice, this'll be neat,
sang the man as he moved closer to you, forcing your chin up.
and bring you closer to me.
He purred. You struggled against him, but the pain of your skin being torn from your body was too much.
Now, don't you squirm, don't you fret.
He continued to sing. You felt yourself going unconscious and heard Alastor laugh.
Oh, sleep, darling. When I return, I'll pump you full of medicine and you'll be good as new.
He whispered into your ear. You drifted into sleep, not knowing that, due to a freak hunting accident, you would never again awaken as a human.
Are you sure it's them?
Asked a voice with a deep British accent.
Yes, it is them. I would know them anywhere.
Replied a voice you knew. Alastor, the man who killed you. You couldn't see anything, but you knew it was him. You could not move. You could not see. You were paralyzed.
Are you sure you want to give them to me?
Asked the other man.
Yes, I have no need for them, and if word gets round about my past life, it could ruin things for me.
Replied Alastor. The other man chuckled, lifting up your chin. He snapped and you awoke with a start. You could move and see. The man holding your chin looked anything but human. He had black antennae, 4 arms, and 2 legs. He was dressed in a long pinkish-red robe with hearts on the fluffy white collar. He licked his lips as he looked at you. He had on a white and black striped shirt underneath, and his pants matched it. You looked at him with wide eyes and caught Alastor leaving in the corner of your eye. He waved to you, mouthing good luck as he left. The man in front of you clicked his tongue as he looked over to you.
Welcome to hell, baby.
The man said.
What? What's happening?
You asked. He chuckled at you.
You died. Came to hell. Alastor just sold you to me, meaning from now on, you are my precious little pet.
He explained to you. You felt yourself going unconscious again, likely due to the shock of your situation. The man leaned close to you, purring into your ear the last words you would hear before passing out.
The name's Valentino, and we're gonna be very good friends.